he's going to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Elliot. Details like this are important. Any comments or opening remarks you would like to make to us, Bryan?
Yeah, two really things that got me was, yeah, there was one question concerning time. I really, that was a hard one to answer because I know how much time I put in on the Elder Society. I know how much time I put in on uh, being the ritual elder coordinator. But I think in the future you might say this is some of the responsibilities or this how many meetings you're going to have, because I felt like my only answer could be I will give it as much time uh, as I put into everything else I've ever done for MKP. And so I wanted to clarify that answer. It seemed open-ended to me.
Ah,
Thank you.
excellent suggestion.
And so that was the one. And there was another one that I really think the question around the uh, mission not the mission trying to say mission statement the strategic plan. Um, there's so much in there. It was really difficult to make a complete evaluation of that. I guess you just wanted to see if we read it. But anyway, that's my two pieces of what I got out of filling out the form.
Thank you. Let me give you a little information about time because I think that's a valuable recommendation you made.
Wow.
The um the board has two regularly scheduled meetings, the first and third Thursday of the month, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's the current schedule. And it usually runs 1 to 2 hours, possible to go to more, but I'd say averages around 2 hours. Um, this year, we've probably met once a month. Last year, we met both meetings every month. We can hold special meetings, not on the regular schedule. And those occur when there's something hot and heavy going on in the project, those can occur weekly. Otherwise, they happen maybe quarterly, if that. We will hold working group sessions on like a Saturday, either to have people come in and talk to us who want to talk to us at length, or we have a topic we want to get into without, the regular meetings are Robert's Rules of Order, so that, they have that sort of flavor to them. And sometimes you want a meeting where you can just talk about things, not through the process of Robert's Rules. So my sense is it's not as time consuming as these other activities you've been involved with. Would that be fair?
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Let me add one other thing. It's a little bit of speculation, if I might, Deb. My speculation is we'll probably have more committee meetings this year than in some of the past administrations. Obviously, it relates closely to the chair. And those, and hopefully we have board members involved in those, because that's the work that really leads up to the board meetings and could be of great, great value. So there might be a few subcommittees that board members are on. And typically, to my experience, they've been 1 hour meetings every week, every other week. So not dramatic, but fruitful.
Thank you, Elliot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, anything else, Bryan, before we?
A little response to that is when I remember the bi-weekly indigenous meetings, and they went on forever and ever and ever.
No,
So
no, no,
that's
no.
why, that's why
Yes,
the
they did.
question sort of,
Yes,
I
no.
went through all of those meetings as well as some of the other meetings that have happened since then. So that's where you understand why I asked.
I understand, and I bless you for your service. I don't think the board would tolerate that level of meetings. I mean, there would have to be something extremely serious going on. Those were long meetings or frequent meetings. I'd be surprised if we entered a situation like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, agree. Please,
Uh,
God, please, please don't let us enter another situation like that. Sorry.
yes, yes. I'll start off, gentlemen, then we could go around. Thank you for your responses to the questionnaire. I'm going to start in a funny direction, and get back on others. You've been very active with Land of My Grandfathers, both in terms of board work and management, of the construction and so forth. Here's a question. When you think of being on the board and fundraising, how do we talk to men in South Central about giving to Land of My Grandfathers versus giving to MKP USA?
It's well, I'll be very honest with you. It is set up as a separate entity now, and it is no longer only set up to serve MKP. It serves multiple different type organizations, and it is its own entity now. Back before I was involved in this too. When we were just the Houston community before the break off into the forming SCA and all the other areas around the country, it actually had what was the Houston community was the home owner of it. But when all that happened, they were told diversify. It became a separate entity. And when it became a separate entity, now it does rent to other people other than MKP. But it's in the bylaws that MKP and Women Within have first choice on all the weekends every year. But it is a separate, and it I don't believe, and now that the Scott Cole, who was the original donor and who sold us the second section of land, passed away, I also sit on the Cole Trust, which is specifically designed to support the revenue from the trust to support LOMG and it only. So
Got it.
I don't think you can reverse time.
Got it. Thank you. Gentlemen.
Boyson, you go ahead, please.
I want to say that I'm very happy with how organized your submission was on the candidate questionnaire. As Elliot alluded to, I think that there will be more board committee meetings coming in the coming years. And I see that you have business and finance experience. Would being a part of this would be a new thing. Finance Oversight Committee for MKP USA be something that interested you as a board member?
Yes, I did it for Land of My Grandfathers. I have sat on that committee for the synagogue. And I have, matter of fact, Jerry England, who passed away during COVID, some of you may have known him. Jerry and I were the finance committee for LOMG because the board was only 6 of us, or 8, pardon me. So yes, I am familiar with that. I have worked on those kind of projects, but I think David, I worked with David on the usage project, and he had to go through some very cumbersome steps to make things happen in a good way. And I think really if he had a team that he could go to and work with, I think it might be beneficial to the whole project.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have to start by being totally transparent. I know Bryan very well. I've been mentoring him for a number of years now through his role as ritual elder coordinator and elder chair. And I'm extremely prejudiced in my thinking in my belief in his strength. Having said all that, I too want to praise you for the thoroughness and the extent to which you answer the questions. It makes life a lot easier when we can see that detailed a snapshot on people. And I want to go right to question 1 and ask you in a more detailed way, why are you running for the board?
If you'd asked me this 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I would have said I have no idea. Through a series of circumstances, I got involved with the elder court, and I began to work and do projects within MKP, and I got more interested and more interested. That led me to working with Elliot and asked me to sit on the elder court, not the ritual. I was first on the ritual, then the elder court. And I got into more projects and more projects. And I don't know, it just seemed like an evolution that I've I have I said, well, this is something I'd like to keep one more step in my process within MKP. MKP changed my life. It's been very beneficial, helpful to me, and that's I didn't know the direction I was going in until I started going in that direction. It wasn't something like I wrote down on a goals list. It wasn't there.
Thank you.
Appreciate the answer.
On your questionnaire, talking about the financial condition of MKP USA, you mentioned working with Dave Marshall for usage, and said perhaps financial restructurings is in order, maybe a CPA could help. Were you referring to our chart of accounts, the way the books are structured, or were you referring to structuring the organization?
Okay, my limited access during the running of usage, I saw it where if I was doing that way, my accountant would have come to me and said, hey, let's streamline it a little bit. Let's get it a little more effective, and let's take some of the pressure off the bookkeeper, and let's keep the company running a little smoother. And that's where I'm coming from. It's not I believe there's checks and balances, and all of that is important, but there were times that we had to get the hotel some money.
Uh-huh.
And it was whoever these people are who make the checks, they couldn't do it for 2 weeks. And we had to end up putting it on a credit card, which I think was his own personal credit card, because the hotel had to get, this was the guarantee money and some of the upfront stuff we had to do. And I found it very cumbersome to work within the current business world. And yes, if you're paying everyday bills, if you're paying a check to land on my grandfather's, and this got to go out in 2 weeks, and this and that kind of business, it's set up to operate. But I don't think it has the flexibility from what happened to us to be able to react in special cases like this. And the fact is that I believe that one of the major things we should be promoting is that all the constituencies get together every year somewhere, and that this kind of thing is as important or more important. You cannot imagine how much fun people enjoyed being together. Even the people from the leader body, and even the members from the GRC and all of that, man, they had a great time. And so I think it's important, even if it's just meeting at a campsite, that we have these abilities to, if it's not down the specific trail, to be able to react in a little bit. He even gave me this special card. I don't know if I should say this. I'm sure you're aware of those cards. So for miscellaneous stuff, I wasn't having to go back to him, which I thought was a great idea. And I was using that card for the $100, $200 printing, little stuff like that. That was a great idea. But we really hit a wall when he had to use his own personal credit card. Most people may not even be aware of what we did. And then he got reimbursed for it. But the hotel said, you want to have it, you got to have the check. We approved the menu, and then we had to get the funds to them.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm complete on my question.
Let's find another one. What do you think? So I see legacy giving in your candidate questionnaire, and I know that you're very aware of the kind of demographics of MKP. What do you think MKP should be doing differently or outside of our box of thinking? Because we have a large aging boomer population within the Mankind Project. Are there things that we should be doing differently?
There's things you should be considering. I
Thank
don't
you.
know if they're different or not, because I don't know what's being considered. But the first thing I think is perfect example could be a life membership. Maybe someone wants to make a donation to have a life membership in memory of or in honor of a member of their family. Okay? So they get to make a X number of dollar donation, and that goes into a fund, just like the Elder Fund, and it's a legacy fund. And you start earning money on that fund, and that helps keep things going. Another situation, I think example happened last week with you, Boyson. We had a man who wanted to give. He wanted a man passed away up in I think it was in New England, and the family wanted to give money to the Elder Society. There's there's no way. If I go on the thing, I can make a donation, period. If I made a donation to the synagogue, a chart comes up. Which one of these funds in the synagogue do you want to give the money to? And you put an X on one, and mine went to the rabbi's fund. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But it is, and we make it difficult for people to donate. We really do. Simplicity is call up the donation site, make your donation, get it done. That to me is part of legacy. That's not just legacy giving, that's just giving in general. And like last year, I got a phone call in the last week of December. It was from Dan. And he says, "Oh, January, I've assigned January to be the elder fundraising month." I said, "But Dan, we haven't had time to even bring it to the court so we could say, well, it doesn't matter. That's the month you've been designated for." And really, the truth is, it's not just legacy donating. I believe that we have to look at a whole program of creating a way for people to donate, not just this is Elder Month, this is this guy month, this is this guy month. The whole thing, it really is part of the financial planning of future and financial planning of men. Other thing, I believe there should be levels of membership. Yeah, the minimum level $10 membership includes you can staff weekends, but we could create some special things for people with higher levels every year of membership. There's all kind of things that can be done, and it's not against people's financial life or
Thank you.
being.
Thank you.
Bryan,
Appreciate that.
let me clarify one thing. When you're talking about in memory of, in honor of, you were talking about people outside of MKP?
To make a donation, yes.
Yeah,
But
okay,
Boyce and
because
I-
within MKP, as you know, we have a system
but
that does work.
this was a situation that
Thank
he
you.
had to make
The
a
outside.
special, what was you gave him a link, isn't that the
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
that they
I had
could
to
go in
find-
and make a donation. So
Thank you.
Oops, I was gonna ask that same question, but you talked about community as a core of all events. Really a lovely statement, but talk more about how, if you're sitting on the board, you would help make that happen. None of us do it alone, but how would you if you had to oversee a subcommittee on that, for example, what would you do?
For community?
Yeah, you said community is the core of all events. Question 9, second or third paragraph.
Okay, so that's something I actually started this year. We have a member of the court, the elder court is a guy from California, Jim Drews, and he really put in some fantastic programs out there. We
Oregon.
are in Oregon. I'm West Coast. I'm in Oregon. So what we've done is we've now started small little programs in different areas. For example, South Central now has a breakfast for the core is getting the new brothers. We have a 20% max retainage rate. We need to have a 50, 60, 70% retainage rate of people. And you want to build your revenue, you make every one of those a member. And that's the kind of thing you got to get out of the old box. And community what around this year alone, there were elder gatherings in over 50% of all the 18 or 19 we just merged out in California communities. I mean, areas. Why we need to expand these so that people, when it's getting back to being one-on-one in person, we got to get people used to being together. If it's just a breakfast in a community, in a city, if it's just, I'm not against Zoom. I think Zoom is phenomenal, but there's still something about one-on-one with people, and that's going to build community. We have to just dialogue it.
You're muted, I think, Deb.
I'd muted.
I am.
Deb was muted.
Yes. Thank you. On your answer about what should the board focus on priorities, you were talking about opportunities. And one of the opportunities was around areas where we don't have a strong presence, perhaps do smaller NWTAs. Can you expand on, and I would define areas without a strong presence as geographic areas without a strong presence, as some that we have like an MKP area and somewhere we don't have an MKP thing at all. Can you expand on how you think we should introduce MKP in both those type of situations?
So what I find is that, for example, we are missing elder chairs in 3 of the areas right now, being that they don't even, they're not, and it seems it's hard to find someone. The people have gone away with COVID. And so if we want to get back in these areas, maybe it's a leader and 2 co-leaders, and they take a little bit less money. And we get people in the area to start bringing people in. This requirement of having 15 or so to make a minimum weekend, we have to do it down for those areas to regenerate at the current rate that we're having to charge people, men, to take the weekend. We have to downscale and the leader body probably won't like the idea of being paid less, but for less people and less, in other words, instead of a 40-man staff, you got a 22 or 25-man staff, and you just have 10 men, but then work on retaining them, because you're never going to have a big enough weekend because there are not enough men working in those areas to get it done. So it's a catch-22. What's the answer? We'll go outside the box and let's try to create, and this would be a total cooperation with the leader body, but the new chair is from the leader body, and he could probably have some pretty decent input on how to make that happen.
Got it. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Talk to me a little bit more about co-gender circles. You're suggesting those as something we should do more of. what do you think? And you kind of answered in your response, but um, we're going to get a variation of reactions if that happens. How are you going to deal with the old timers who say, "Oh, I came here to be with men"?
Okay. Cogender circles happen, in my judgment, when we have cogender events. That's the secret to what I'm trying to say. When you have a usage, we had a phenomenal mix where the women within had their meetings. We had the elder court and council meetings, and then some, not all, some of the presentations and presentations, the different ones we had were for MKP only. Some of them were for women within only, and some of them were co-gender. One of them that was co-gender was one about grief. And my wife had lost her sister, and there were men who had lost, that was a perfect situation to allow. It ended up a beautiful situation for her to have a co-gender piece when that applied to both of them. And no, I want any, no offense, Deb, but I don't want any women in my I group. That's not co-gender to me. I want to be with the guys in my I group. I love them all. But when there's an event that you can have something that fits for everyone, it's good to have it where it's open to everyone. And we made decisions on the programs for usage. Was it going to be all or co? That's where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Bryan.
I don't have another question. I just, again, your interview was your questions, responses were very thorough, and I appreciate and I just honor the amount of service that you're already giving to MKP. Thank you.
Thank you for the compliment.
Yes, I as well really enjoyed reading your questionnaire, and I do have another question. No surprise there, right? So you've been on NASDAQ boards, the NASDAQ boards for the companies that were bought out. You've been on nonprofit boards, religious organization board. What do you see as the differences in your board experience for the different type of entities that you were representing? What were the differences and what were the strengths and weaknesses of the nonprofit board experience?
Okay. Obviously, if it's a NASDAQ board, you have stockholders. And hold on, I just hit a button and my screen went away. There it is.
We hear you.
And so when we made decisions, it was one, there were venture capital people who owned the company at the time when they were on the NASDAQ board. So we had to make sure their interest was protected. We had to make sure that the interest of the shareholders was protected. And we had to see that the development of what we were trying to achieve worked. If it didn't, in one case, there was a situation with a president that had to be changed. And, we had to make that decision. In the case of a nonprofit board, it's a matter of making sure that, making sure that the people who are on there understand that there is a reason for being there to deal with the mission, vision, and all of those things that the company, that the nonprofit is dealing with. I will give you my own personal example. When I took over as the chair, I realized in our chair meetings when Ruel was leading that we would start off with a business and then we'd get over into a discussion, and we really never finished having all the business. So what I did is I said, guys, the first and third Wednesday of each month, we're going to strictly have a court business meeting. On the third and fourth Wednesday of every month, we're going to have a roundtable discussion, team building meeting, one side of the brain, the other side of the brain, every other week. It has worked. We I've got members of the court calling me up, say, can I bring this guy as a guest? They got to experience what we're doing on the roundtable meeting. And yet when it comes to the first and third, we are there for business. And every member of that court is either in charge of a committee or he is a liaison to one of the other constituencies. And that's the business side of my brain. I'm sorry. That's how I operated my little company, and that's how I work. So with that in mind, it gave us a place where we had an opportunity to talk, and a lot of times a subject will come up on the business meeting, the court meeting, and we'll say, hey, let's talk about that next Wednesday. And so we do it the next Wednesday, and we keep the flow working. Yes, there's a place for both sides of the brain, but we have to focus on getting the business done too.
I appreciate
Thank
that
you.
answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Elliot?
So my promise to Bryan was that we'd finish on time because in a half hour, he has one of those meetings today. So my question to you is, do you have any questions for us, Bryan?
I think I misplaced this. When is the meeting where you guys choose the people you want to go forward?
23rd of November.
Voting meeting, or whatever you call that at the board.
It's called an election, and an annual
Election.
meeting are both held on Saturday, November 23rd.
So if you hold it, it's usually the afternoon, and I will get back with more specific information.
Okay. Is there anything else I need to do beyond this meeting?
We will talk about whether we want you to give 3-minute intro at the election. I'm not sure yet. It really depends on how many people and the time and so forth. We go through this interview process and then give you more detail about here's the Zoom invite, here's the times and so forth. As soon as I have the times available for the elections, I will get them to all the candidates. That should be forthcoming week or so.
Okay, because November 23rd, I might be in Austin for my daughter and my new grandson, but I can fix that. I can.
Yeah, I will try to get soon because that's an important visit.
Yeah, yes, I know, but that's why I was playing with my calendar over here on the other screen.
And Bryan, what we can do, we run essentially different elections. We do the election for secretary, election for treasurer, election for at large. You don't have to attend all of them.
Yeah.
So you can just really control how much time you want to spend at the meeting.
Yep.
The other question is, how many people are being elected this year?
That's a good question. So both the secretary and treasurer are going to complete their term at the end of the calendar year. So that's an open position, and the treasurer is an open secretary and treasurer, and those are 2-year terms. So we will elect a secretary first, then a treasurer. Our at-large positions, we had 2 at-large positions come open. And then because we changed the way we're electing our chair, we no longer are doing the chair-elect. I wrote about that, and Boyson helped write it a little more clearly. That means 3 at-large members. So there are 3 at-large roles currently open. Here is a complicating factor. We have 1 current, and the at-large members are 2-year terms. We have 1 at-large member who's midterm who is running for secretary. If he wins that, position, we get more people applying for the at-large roles than the secretary-treasurer roles. If he wins that election, well, what do we do with him? He's an at-large till year-end midterm. We don't want him holding both votes. So what we have decided as a policy for this year is if he wins the secretary election, he will give up his term effective 1/1/2025, which means now when we then move to the final elections, which is the at-large elections, we will have 4. So it's either 3 or 4, pending the outcome of the secretary election.
Yeah, so you have to do those first to know.
Correct. Thank you. Yep, you're right with us. Yeah, we just thought of that the other day, and so we passed a resolution on policy.
Yeah, I got it.
I'm sure something will come
Anything
up
else?
that we haven't thought of, but we will deal with it.
Anything else, Brian?
No, I'm great. Thank you. I hope I answered
Thank
your
you.
questions, and I appreciate your time.
Mm,
I
And
appreciate
too,
your time,
thanks.
Brian.
Be
thank
well.
you, Brian.
Thank
Also,
you.
if you do have any questions or comments and we're not getting back to you fast enough, either Elliot or I, contact us and we'll
I'll be
respond.
glad to. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Come to the meeting once in a while, Elliot.
Yeah, I can't today. We
Good
should
luck with your
end the,
meeting.
can we end the recording, Deb?
Yes, please.
Oh, take
Good, there we
that.